Yo! So this video is 5 years in the making, and the point of it is to tell you why I think the SR-007 Mark I's are the perfect audio reproduction system to me. Notice that I don't say that it's the best audio system because I can't really compare to every single one out there. And I want to use this video to give you an idea of what it means to have reached perfection. What are their criteria? What do I experience? And how I went about assessing this perfection level for this headphone system. And so I first want to start with the definition of an audiophile to me. And to me, the definition of an audiophile is somebody who seeks to find a audio system that is able to reproduce unamplified sounds as faithfully as possible. And notice that I emphasize the unamplified part. So most of our music that we experience live is actually amplified through dynamic speakers. Whenever you're at a bar or at a concert, it's pretty much always the vocals, the guitars, and the drums as well in large concerts are amplified through dynamic speakers. And so just right off the bat, that doesn't really help with assessing the unamplified sounds that are coming from those instruments. So that's why a lot of audiophiles kind of gravitate towards classical music, because it's able to give you a better idea of what unamplified sounds sound like or are able to reproduce through the speakers and through headphones as unamplified sounds. And so that's why a lot of audiophiles go to classical concerts, because they're trying to assess what the unamplified sounds sound like so they can go home and reproduce those sounds through their system and assess whether or not the sounds are accurate and faithfully reproduced. And I think all of us have a capability of identifying what unamplified sounds should sound like, because throughout our daily lives, we experience unamplified sounds all day. You know, your washing machine running, cars driving on the road, car horns, doors closing. I mean, every sound that you experience throughout the day is an unamplified sound that allows you to reference that unamplified sound to the sounds that you hear in your speaker or headphone system. And so it's similar to skin tones with photography, pictures and photos. We all have a somewhat of a good ability to identify what is an accurate skin tone, unless you are colorblind. And even if you are colorblind, you can still compare the colors that you see to the colors that you see reproduced in a picture. And so for unamplified sounds, the SR-007 Mark I, to me, reproduces them in a way that I have no real complaints, no real thing that stands out to me about the sound that makes it feel like it's not correct. So everything about the sounds are correct to me. And the thing that I most notice about other sound systems that I feel are not faithfully reproducing unamplified music or sounds is I consider any sound that isn't faithfully reproduced as glare. And so glare to me can mean the bass is too bloomy, the vocals are too harsh, the cymbals are too smudgy or overly etchy. And so when I listen to any speakers or any headphones, I'm always very attuned to any glare, and I'm not a person who has read through every single terminology about sound reproduction and assessing or evaluating sounds. I'm mostly focused on, is this sound perfect? Is this sound comparable to the unamplified sounds that I hear throughout the day or I hear in concerts and whatnot? And so in the past, I've had certain evaluations of the 007 Mark 1s that I felt were not perfect. To give you an example is, in the past, I have thought that the 007 Mark 1s, the vocals are a little bit dark. That means that the vocals are not as vibrant as you would expect in real life. And to give you an example of recordings that have a dark tint to the vocals versus a bright tint to the vocals, an example of a dark tint is the Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, the 2011 remaster. If you listen to that song, you can kind of hear the lead singer's vocals is kind of dark. It's a little bit. It feels like he's singing and his voice is coming from like a radio rather than a big room. And if you listen to Taylor Swift's new song, Anti-Hero, that's an example of bright vocals where her vocals seem like they're very exuberant and singing in a large room where you feel like her vocals are very present. And so that's just an example of dark and bright vocals in terms of the recording. And in the past, I have thought that the 007 Mark 1s tend to, in general, have more dark vocals. But in reality, when I've compared the 007 Mark 1's vocals to vocals that I hear in real life unamplified, I've noticed that the Headphone's vocals are actually more real to life than I had previously thought. And this thought came to me when I was listening to a mariachi band during Cinco de Mayo. And I noticed that the vocals from the band were, again, they're darker than what I would have expected. And I compared that to the sounds, the mariachi songs that I listened to on the 007 Mark 1s, and I found that they had the same kind of dark tint to them. So once again, it's kind of a something that you have to listen to and compare constantly with your sound reproduction system to see whether or not the sounds are perfect. And the other aspect of these headphones that I consider as perfect, a criteria that you should expect to have when you have achieved perfection, basically, is that every single time I listen to the 007 Mark 1s, I'm satisfied. There's no time when I listen to them where I feel like there's something off, or every single time I listen to these headphones, I love them. And I've loved them ever since day one that I've owned them. And the thing that stands out to me about the sound of the 007 Mark 1s is that every single sound has a certain meatiness, has a certain presence on the sound spatial stage in the recording. And so it's a very addicting characteristic of the sound that is also real life. It sounds like real life to me, because if you go about your day and you kind of really analyze every sound that you listen to, all the sounds have a certain spotlight on them, and they have a certain meatiness and a certain reverberation that they create in the air. And that's the same kind of experience that I have with the 007 Mark 1s. And if you've if you pay attention to live unamplified sounds, you would notice that these live sounds have a certain immediacy, a certain transparency to them that are very easily lost when you listen to them on a dynamic speaker. And whenever you walk around in life and then you experience live unamplified music, you're immediately aware that it's very likely that sound that you are hearing is live music and live unamplified music. And there's a stark difference between being able to identify what is live unamplified music versus something that is amplified. I mean, there's a lot of characteristics of sounds that are amplified that you can pick out. Distortion, there's maybe a certain harshness in the sound, but live unamplified music always has that thing that stands out compared to any other kind of sound, and you're always able to pick that out. And with the 007 Mark I's, for example, the vocals, there's always this sense of realism to me when I listen to vocals on the 007 Mark I's. Of course, it depends on the recording, but for the most part, every single recording that I've listened to, every single song that I've listened to on the 007 Mark I's sound at least very, very good to me, because my mind is able to believe that the sounds that I'm hearing from these headphones are perfect. And once you're able to achieve this level of perfection, your mind, your logic are able to align into this emotional acceptance of perfection. And when you get to that point, any sound that you listen to on these headphones, your whole body and your whole mind is able to accept that it's the best sound that can be reproduced through these headphones. And so the funny thing with high-end audio is that people always talk about these little percent differences. They'll say, oh, this speaker or this headphone is 2 or 3 or 5% better than this headphone. But in reality, those 2 or 3 or 5% can make a lot of difference in terms of your emotional acceptance of the music. For example, when you have a headphone that is basically perfect at everything except the bass is a little bit too bloomy, even that little bit of bloom can distract you from every piece of music. And the difference between a perfect sounding headphone compared to one that sounds 2% less than perfect can mean the whole world for your sound enjoyment experience. For me, for example, I can enjoy dynamic speakers. I can enjoy other modalities of sound reproduction. It's just that perfection is a level that allows me to really savor that extra level of pleasure from listening to music. And so with the 007 Mark I's, I listen to every genre of music and I find enjoyment in every single genre. And that's something that is kind of a misconception in a lot of audiophiles. They think that most high-end systems are only good for listening to well-recorded music or only certain types of music. But in my experience with this perfect headphone system, every genre, every song, everything sounds perfect to me. And that's the thing that is just very special about my headphone system. which is the 007 Mark 1s attached to the KGSS HV carbon using a topping D90 LE DAC along with a 2016 MacBook Pro using Amazon Music HD. And all of these components are critical to the perfect sound reproduction that I'm talking about. You might ask, okay, why is the MacBook important? Well, I also have a MacBook Pro that uses the M1 Pro CPU, and for some reason, I'm not sure if it's Amazon's fault or the MacBook's fault. Every time Amazon plays music using the FLACs, there might be some minor static, intermittent static that occurs when I listen to FLACs through the M1 Pro MacBook that I have. So once again, every single component in the chain is important for achieving this perfect sound that I'm talking about. And that's another thing about high-end audio. A lot of people want to simplify the high-end audio experience to say that this headphone is better than this headphone or this speaker is better than this speaker. But really, everything in the system matters. You can't just compare headphones. You have to compare the whole system as a single unit. And for speakers, you might even have to compare the actual rooms and a lot of the more expensive aspects of the system other than just the speakers themselves. And the final thing that I want to go through about this 007 Mark 1 review, it's not really a review, but I want to tell you that I actually have 3 pairs of the 007 Mark 1s, and I can go through, I can post here the different serial number series that I have, and all of them sound very similar to me, and they sound similar only when I remove the dust cover inside of the headphone ear pad. And so I've compared the 007 Mark 1s with this dust cover and without the dust cover. And without the dust cover, it sounds a lot more transparent and a lot faster, a lot more immediate. The sound is a lot more immediate to me when I use it without the dust cover. And I've been using it this way for 5 years now without any issue. You can see how I store my 007 Mark 1s. I basically just put them in this cardboard box, and I leave the box a little bit of not closed all the way so the humidity doesn't build up within the box. And so I've been storing and I've been using these headphones this way for 5 years now without any issue, without the dust cover. And so I'm not encouraging you to remove the dust cover, but if you really want that extra bit of sound quality to reach this perfection level, I think you really need to listen to the headphones without the dust cover. And so that pretty much concludes this video. I know it's kind of almost a pointless video about the 007 Mark 1s, but I've really spent the last few months trying to get to this video. I've been trying to pick apart what I think or what are the possibilities of this headphone being not perfect. And every time I've tried, I've always reached the conclusion that this is the perfect sound to me. And I'm typically a very picky person. Every little imperfection in anything I kind of pick up on. And so for me to tell you that this is the perfect sound system for me right now really means something, especially if you know the type of person that I am. So hopefully you found this little video helpful in your own search for perfection. Perfection really means being satisfied with the sound system every time, every day, and you're not able to identify any flaws in the way it reproduces the sound. And really, that's what I'm experiencing with 007 Mark 1s. Everything is perfect. And it's only perfect with the KGSS HV carbon and this D90 LE DAC. And it's possible that in the future, I might find some minor flaw in this sound reproduction system. And if I do, I'll let you know about it. But for now, this is perfection. Thanks for watching.